DCEU is a strange thing for me. I've talked to many friends about it. I've let them know how I feel and my feelings and ideas as to what I think they should do in order to try to see a more successful future as a film division. So here I am putting those thoughts into a video for the world to see. So here we go. What I think the DCEU needs to do in order to be successful. First off, let me start with, I have no idea at the moment what the future of the DCEU looks like. With all the new films like Joker, Wonder Woman 84, and Matt Reeves' The Batman on the way, and even James Gunn's Suicide Squad, it's a bit hard to say exactly how things will pan out. I want to believe that things will turn out fine. I can't straight away say that though. Though things look like they're getting on a good track, it does at the same time start to look like, is this even a cinematic universe anymore? Is this stuff still connected? I mean, we know Joker won't be connected, and the same can be said for Matt Reeves' The Batman, or at least it's been rumored. I guess we'll kind of have to wait to find out everything exactly how this will play out and what happens. Now let's take a look at where exactly the DCEU failed first, then attempt to rectify those mistakes. Coming out of the door with Man of Steel, the DCEU seemed to be an upcoming valid alternative to the MCU. Though it was far from the best film, Man of Steel established a more realistic and darker world for these heroes to reside in. That's probably the first mistake because of any character to go with that darker tone for, Superman was chosen. The big bad Boy Scout in blue is now a dark, brooding, and dare I say it, scary character. That's not Superman. Superman in the comics can have more serious and dark moments, but Superman is supposed to inspire people, not just in the world of these heroes, but in the real world. He's supposed to be that role model, something amazing and larger than life that everyone looks at and sees hope for a better tomorrow. Not something to look at and be afraid that he could bust the city up with his next encounter with a deadly foe. That's never been Superman. That's the difference between the DCEU Superman and Christopher Reeve's Superman. When I watch back those old Superman movies, I feel inspired. I feel like I'm watching a hero. I feel like if the case were that I lived in that world, we could feel safe knowing that there's a guy like that out there to protect us. DCEU Superman feels like you should be skeptical about him in the best case scenario and absolutely terrified in the worst. Now that's by no means me saying that Henry Cavill was a bad Superman. He did the best he could do with that, and I've told this to multiple people multiple times that had he been given the chance to do so, he could have definitely been a fantastic Superman. Sad to say that it looks like now that will never happen. After Man of Steel came BVS, Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, which you cannot deny was definitely a film most people were hyped for. For a time, most people were way more hyped for this film than they were hyped for Civil War, and then that trailer dropped.
Boys! Bruce Wayne meets Clark Kent. I love it. I love bringing people together. How are we?
Lex.
Hi, hello. Lex, it is a pleasure. Ow! Wow, that is a good grip. You should not pick a fight with this person.
It seemed to be utterly wrong, but I still held out my hope for the movie, so what happened when I did finally see this film I had once been so hyped for? Well, I was horribly disappointed. Not only did DC and Warner Bros. Ruin it by trying to force in far too much stuff pertaining to the future of this universe, but the film was totally devoid of any charm at all. I could at least give that to Man of Steel. Even though it wasn't the best, it captivated my young mind at the time. Even now, it still has a certain charm to it. Batman vs. Superman gave me a good Batman scene or two and a bunch of crap. Again, I'll say this, I'm not going to blame Ben Affleck as I actually liked his performance, but other than that, the film was a total letdown, especially when we get to the fact that they crammed so much into this film. Things that weren't needed. We didn't need to see clips of everyone in the league via emails between Bruce and Diana. We didn't need to see Doomsday plot play out. We didn't need that in this one. All we really needed was the setup of Lex putting Batman against Superman, the heroes eventually realizing they're on the same side and taking down the bad guy together. That is all we needed. We didn't even need Wonder Woman in this, though she wasn't anything bad in the film. But with everything in it, this film just felt way too stacked and cluttered. A complete mess. Part of me can understand why DC rushed into this so quickly, rushed things out so quickly. I can understand it, I guess. I guess they're looking at it like Marvel was at these big events. They're doing these huge events from the comics, and now they're past introducing the big dogs. They're doing the big stuff, and it's just drawing more and more. Maybe that was the reason for rushing things to get there, but I promise that is not the way to do this. I get that those big events like Civil War, Endgame, and Infinity War, all the sorts like that, bring in a big box office, but if you take the time to write your characters well and to create this universe that people will like, the box office comes naturally. A big event doesn't dictate a movie doing well. A good movie around characters we've gotten to know in a universe we all believe dictates that. I mean, these characters alone can bring in that natural box office draw. Batman is going to draw regardless. So what you need to do is to write a good Batman film to make sure that it draws even more. What you need to do is write a good Flash film to make sure that it draws even more. And yes, what you need to do is to write a good Justice League film to make sure that that movie draws even more instead of being a big letdown. So I bet you're wondering, okay, so how do they exactly fix their mistakes? Now, I don't know exactly how the future of the DCEU will pan out. Like I said, this whole video could be so irrelevant in a year from now. Heck, this video could be irrelevant in a couple months from now. But what I've always suggested whenever I've talked about this with friends, whoever I talked about this with, I think the DCEU/Warner Bros., I think they should just take a little time off, allow the old DCEU to get out of our minds, give about 2 to 5 years, just to give everyone some time to get that bad taste out of their mouth from the original DCEU out of their mouths. After this time, this break, begin with something fresh. Start off slow, introduce your big three, Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman in their own films, not a crossover or whatever. Maybe cameo 1 or 2 other league members in them, depending on how big they're going to be in the league film. If everyone is going to be these big players, if everyone's going to be a big shot in the league, then hell, just give everyone their own film first. And then when we get to the Justice League movie, we know these characters well enough to put them together, and we don't have to, oh, who's this guy? Oh, okay, and who's this guy? Oh, okay, and who's this guy? Also, we need to know the rest of this plot, what's going on in this film, what's this villain about, what's this and this and that. That's the logical thing to do. Now, like I said, a lot of you are probably thinking, well, DC is starting to get on the right track. Why would they want to do something like that when they're finally doing good? And yeah, that's true. Maybe we can do something like this though. How about instead of going straight for the let's start over, they could always just begin to rejoin the team of the Justice League, building the connected universe once more. That works too. My main problem is with how the DCEU seems to be beginning to branch off into separate universes per film. I mean, I realize that Shazam and Aquaman and Wonder Woman, those are all in the same universe, but they still feel separate enough to not exactly feel in the same universe. When you watch the first Ant-Man film, you realize that this was in the Marvel Universe because they had enough in there to make it feel like the Marvel Universe. They had cameos from Marvel characters. When you watch Spider-Man Homecoming, you realize this is in the Marvel Universe because there was after effects from past films in the Marvel Universe and everything. These films, the newer DC films, they just feel like totally, there's none of that weight, none of that pressure, none of that change that happened in the first couple films in the DCEU to hold them down and to make them feel like they're all in the same universe, except for maybe an Easter egg of this character or that character. So it just doesn't feel the same, it doesn't feel connected. I mean, Joker and the Batman are already said to not be a part of the main DCEU continuity, yet alone not even sharing the same continuity. So these two films, the Joker is its own continuity and the Batman is its own continuity. Neither one of those films are going to be crossing over in continuity, as rumored and said by many people behind these films. Not to mention the numerous other actors who won't be returning to portray their characters again, like Ezra Miller as the Flash, Ray Fisher as Cyborg, and Henry Cavill as Superman. In all, it's just a big confusing mess, really. I guess the best we can do is wait and see just what happens and hope that DC will do the best that they can do. In a whole, the cinematic connected universe idea, while I'd wager it isn't the easiest thing to do, and hell, I could actually tell you it's not the easiest thing to do because I'm working on a cinematic universe of my own, but it is nowhere near as hard as DC had made it for themselves, especially in the beginning. I guess the big thing here is to just don't be so quick to shoot for the stars in a cinematic universe if that's what you're gonna do. It's always better to just start off slow, build up to these things, rather than to race towards the dollar signs in superhero battles. Anyway, that's just my take on this whole thing. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and let's chat about this because this is really a topic I'm really passionate about, and I would like to hear more people's points of view on this. Thanks for watching, guys. Later. Thanks for watching another video, guys. If you want more of me and video updates, you can follow me on social media, links down below. Thanks again for watching. Leave a like, comment, subscribe, and ring that notification bell. See you guys next time with the next video.